The Jedi Temple on Coruscant was a monument to a dying philosophy. To the consciousness of Darth Vader, trapped within the small, unassuming body of a boy, it was a museum of arrogance and hubris. The soaring spires, the quiet halls, the serene Jedi going about their rituals. It was all a fragile eggshell, waiting for the hammer blow he knew was coming. But he was no longer the hammer. He was a virus, patiently introduced into the host, waiting to rewrite its code from within. His new life was a meticulously maintained paradox. He was Anakin Skywalker, the newly assigned Padawan to Obi-Wan Kenobi, the chosen one discovered by the maverick Qui-Gon Jinn. He played the part with a chilling perfection. He was respectful, eager to learn, and preternaturally gifted. He mastered complex lightsaber drills, forms he had invented brutal variations for on the first try. He grasped advanced metaphysical concepts with a nod, as if merely recalling something he'd once known. But behind the blue eyes of the child was the cold, calculating gaze of a Sith Lord. Every interaction was a performance. Every lesson was an assessment of weakness. He walked the light side, but his methods were forged in the darkest pits of Mustafar and the Emperor's throne room. His first strategic move was to solidify his core alliance. He sought out Qui-Gon Jinn, not Obi-Wan, for guidance. He knew Obi-Wan was a traditionalist, a man of the code. Qui-Gon was different. He was a realist, a man who listened to the living force, not the dogmatic texts. Anakin would pose complex, troubling questions. "Master Qui-Gon," he asked one day, seated in the Master's simple quarters. "The code says there is no emotion, there is peace. But isn't compassion an emotion? Isn't the desire to protect the innocent a feeling? If we strip that away, what are we protecting?" Qui-Gon, who had been meditating, opened his eyes, a look of deep interest on his face. These were not a child's questions. They were the questions of a seasoned philosopher. "You walk a dangerous line, young one. The code is a guide, not an absolute. It warns against emotion leading to possession, jealousy, fear. But the light side itself is born from a connection to all life, which is a feeling." Anakin nodded, feigning thoughtful absorption. "So, it's not about having no feelings. It's about which feelings you serve. The ones that connect you to life, or the ones that connect you only to yourself." Qui-Gon stared at him, a strange chill going down his spine. The wisdom in the boy's words was profound, but the delivery was cold, clinical. It was as if he was discussing a technical schematic, not the heart of the Jedi Order. "Yes," Qui-Gon said slowly. "That is a very advanced way of putting it." Meanwhile, his relationship with Obi-Wan was more complex. He treated him with the respect a Padawan owed a master, but he subtly reversed their dynamic. During lightsaber training, he would, with perfect innocence, point out a flaw in Obi-Wan's defensive stance. "Master Kenobi, if you shift your weight here, wouldn't it make the transition to Form 3 more efficient against multiple blaster bolts?" Obi-Wan, initially irritated, would try it and find the boy was right. It was unnerving. He found himself not just teaching the boy, but learning from him. A quiet, unspoken competition developed, one that Anakin, with 40 years of dueling experience, always won without ever appearing to try. His greatest source of anguish and strength was Padme. She had returned to Naboo, a queen no longer, but a rising senator. He used the temple's communication archives to follow her career, her speeches. He watched holograms of her, his heart a battlefield of love, guilt, and a possessive fury that still echoed with the dark side. He wanted to send her a message, to warn her, to confess everything. But he knew he couldn't. She would think him mad. Or worse, she would believe him. And the horror of his confession, of what he would become, of what he had done to her, would shatter her. His love for her had to be expressed through silence and absolute protection. He would let her live her life, while he worked in the shadows to ensure the man who would manipulate her to her death never got the chance. The true war, however, was fought in the shadows of the Republic itself. Chancellor Valorum was still in power, but the machinations of Darth Sidious were already in motion. The Naboo crisis had been a test, and while it had not ended with the death of a Jedi Master, it had still showcased the Republic's corruption. Anakin began his counter-campaign. Using his knowledge of future political events and Palpatine's methods, he started feeding information to Qui-Gon. It was always subtle, always deniable. He would overhear a conversation between Jedi about a trade dispute in the Outer Rim. "Master Qui-Gon," he'd later say, "I was meditating on the Force and I had a strange thought. What if the Trade Federation's blockade of Naboo wasn't about taxation? What if it was just a test, a practice run for something bigger, to see how the Senate would react?" Another time, after a lesson on galactic economics, he mused, "It seems strange that a single individual could amass so much power in the Republic without anyone noticing. A charismatic senator, maybe from the mid-rim, who everyone thinks is a moderate, but is really playing every side against the other." Qui-Gon listened. He took these insights not as the ramblings of a child, but as the will of the living Force speaking through its most powerful conduit. He began bringing these concerns to the Council, framing them as his own theories. Master Windu dismissed them as paranoia, but Master Yoda listened. His large ears twitched, and his ancient eyes grew dim with concern. The Force was cloudy, but the boy's words, as relayed by Qui-Gon, rang with a disturbing clarity. The years passed. Anakin grew into a teenager, his power growing to match the vast knowledge within. He was the model Jedi Padawan, yet he was the biggest heretic the Order had ever housed. He had quietly, carefully created a faction within the Order itself. A faction of three: himself, the instrument of action; Obi-Wan, the loyal, skilled warrior; and Qui-Gon, the respected voice who could challenge the Council. The first major test of his new timeline came with the outbreak of the Clone Wars, the attempt on Senator Amidala's life, the discovery of the clone army on Kamino. It all unfolded as he remembered. But this time, the Jedi were not blind recipients of this miraculous army. They were suspicious. Obi-Wan, who had just returned from Kamino, was troubled. "The clones are real, Anakin. They are impressive. And we are at war." "Which is why the trap is so effective, Master," Anakin replied. "The weapon is real, the threat is real, but the hand that gives you the weapon is the same hand that created the threat." Qui-Gon, his face grave, nodded. "The boy is right. This has the stench of the Sith all over it. We must take the army. We have no choice, but we must not trust it." Under Qui-Gon's urging, the Jedi Council made an unprecedented decision. The clone army would be deployed, but it would be led by Jedi teams, not single generals. Padawans were paired together. Knights worked in trios. No Jedi would be alone with a legion of clones. It was a tactical nightmare, a logistical headache, but it was a safeguard born from the strategic mind of a Sith Lord. The war progressed differently. Jedi casualties were lower. Key battles were won not through brute force, but through precise, almost clairvoyant strategies devised by Anakin, who always seemed to know the Separatists' plans before they were executed. His reputation as the Ghost General grew. He never left a hollow record of his briefings. He was always just off-screen, his advice relayed through Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon. He still fought. He led the charge on dozens of worlds. But his style was different. It was not the flamboyant, brutal efficiency of Darth Vader, nor the reckless heroics of the Anakin of old. It was a cold, flawless, and utterly terrifying economy of motion. He never took a risk. He never fought for glory. He fought only to achieve the objective with zero losses. Clone troopers adored him because he brought them home. Jedi were unnerved by him because he fought without passion, without joy, without a hint of the light side's warmth. He was a machine of war, and they could not understand how such a thing could exist within the Force. All the while, he watched one man, Chancellor Palpatine. The Sith Lord, frustrated at every turn, was being outmaneuvered by an unseen opponent. His grand strategy was being countered at every step. His relationship with the hero with no fear never developed. Anakin actively avoided him, citing a discomfort with politicians that the Jedi found commendable. Palpatine, in his office, felt a rival's presence in the Force, a shadow that opposed his own. He assumed it was Yoda, or perhaps the elusive Dooku. He never once suspected the quiet, intensely focused Padawan, who was the source of all his troubles. The climax came not on a battlefield, but in the heart of the Jedi Temple. Anakin, now 17, stood with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan before the council. He had requested the audience. "Masters," he began, his voice calm and resonant, carrying an authority that belied his years. "The war is a distraction, a grand illusion. The Sith Lord is not hiding on a separatist world. He is not a mysterious figure in the shadows. He is here. He has been here the entire time." He activated a holoprojector. It displayed a complex web of financial transactions, political favors, and intelligence reports. A web he had spent years meticulously reconstructing from memory and new investigation. At the center of the web was a single name: Sheev Palpatine, Chancellor of the Republic. The council chamber was silent, then murmurs of disbelief. "This is a serious accusation, Padawan Skywalker," Mace Windu said, his voice tight. "You are accusing the Supreme Chancellor of the Republic of being a Sith Lord." "I am," Anakin said, his gaze unwavering. "He orchestrated the Naboo crisis. He commissioned the clone army. He is the master of Count Dooku. He is playing both sides of this war to consolidate his own power. The final move is coming soon. He will use the war as an excuse to grant himself emergency powers, and then he will move to eliminate the only threat to his new empire, the Jedi Order." Yoda studied him, his Geimer stick tapping quietly. "Clouded the forces, but a pattern there is. A design. Seen it, I have. Believed I did not, until now. We have no proof that will convince the Senate," Ki-Adi-Mundi argued. "We are not going to the Senate," Anakin said, his voice dropping to a tone that was no longer that of a Jedi Padawan. It was the voice of a man who had commanded legions. "He is a Sith Lord. The law does not apply. He must be confronted. By us. Now." Mace Windu looked from Yoda's grim face to Qui-Gon's resolute one, to Obi-Wan's shocked but trusting expression, and finally to the intense, burning gaze of the boy who had seen the future. "Then it is time we finish this," Mace said, rising to his feet. "Skywalker, you will accompany us. Kenobi, Jin, with me." As the 4 Jedi Masters and the 2 Knights prepared to leave, Anakin felt a familiar coldness settle in his stomach. This was the moment he had been working toward for 8 long years. He was walking into the Dragon's Den not as a victim, but as a hunter. He had the element of surprise. He had the knowledge of every trick Palpatine would use. But as he ignited his blue lightsaber in the turbo lift descending to the Senate building, a single, terrifying thought crossed his mind. He had changed everything. He had saved his mother. He had saved Qui-Gon. He had safeguarded the Jedi. He had no idea what Palpatine would do now. The future was, for the first time since his rebirth, truly unknown.